The child of a black father and Puerto Rican mother, Miles is a wonderful mixture of cultures and languages. The way he leaps off of rooftops and flips backwards to face the camera before falling into a headfirst dive is just full of the exaggerated swagger of a black teen. Full of the exaggerated swagger of a black teen.
What? What the fuck? What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from The Quartering, and, well, we knew that the new Spider-Man game was going to have some call-outs, a little bit of politics in it because of the last Spider-Man game and Insomniac Studios injecting politics into that as well. Now, look, again, I will say before everyone gets bent out of shape, it's their video game. They can put it in there, all right? They can put all the pride flags and trans rights flags and all this stuff they want in the games. That's obviously their right to do. They're entirely entitled to do so. But I just want to point out game journalism's obsession with race. They almost like fetishize it. And a particular GameSpot review that entirely backfired in an absolutely hilarious way. First and foremost, literally every major video game outlet covered the fact that Spider-Man Miles Morales has a big BLM tribute. And again, I'll be clear so people understand my position. I have no problem with the concept that any type of life matters, right? The problem is the BLM movement is it is forever tethered to the politics of the BLM movement, which is a Marxist organization bent on basically everything but promoting Black lives, things like destroying the nuclear family and all sorts of crazy stuff. You can just literally read it on their website, which they've since hidden some of it, but there are obviously archived versions available. So, obviously I have no problem with the phrase. I have a problem with the organization. Maybe they should change their name. You see, Marvel's Spider-Man's Miles Morales returns to New York City of its predecessor, but the political climate in the real world has changed significantly since Marvel's Spider-Man came out in 2018. And who doesn't want modern politics in their video games? I mean, am I right? Now, Spider-Man's 2018 came out in Marvel's Spider-Man came out in 2018 with months of protests, mostly peaceful, of course, taking place in cities across the country. In May, Insomniac Games' new title takes current events into account in an unambiguous way, paying tribute to the Black Lives Matter movement with a massive in-game mural that unlocks after you complete a line of side quests. You literally have to unlock it. It's not just a part of, it's not just this passive thing on the wall. It's actually part of the game. As Games Radar supports, you'll find a mural upon completion of a series of side quests in which Spider-Man helps out various people in New York, specifically in his home neighborhood of Harlem. When you knock out all the quests, you receive the Uptown Pride suit, which is black and yellow, the colors associated with the BLM movement. The cutscene awarding you the suit takes place in front of the mural, featuring the slogan. Miles is, of course, half black, half Puerto Rican, and his experience is a major part of his character, both in the game and in comics that inspired it. Still, it's notable for a big-name game to take such a prominent stance, especially since game developers and publishers are notorious from backing away from politics. Are you smoking crack? This is all video game developers talk about. Like, are you joking right now? In what world do you say they're notorious for backing away from it? It's so rare that a game comes out and says, hey, look, we're not having any overt political messaging in our game, that it's celebrated by the community. When Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 came out, and every journalist in the industry was like, but what political statements are you making with this video game? And they refused to say it, they were making any. They were lambasted by the video games industry. Even when their games seem pretty clear in the messaging, the BLM tribute in Miles Morales also came after Insomniac was criticized in 2018 for making Peter Parker's Spider-Man work so closely with the NYPD, especially after other nationwide protests happened. Right, of course, cops bad, You should really just make them the villain. It's so funny to me that the same people that would say, a couple of bad apples don't spoil an entire color of people, which is true. They're willing to say, if you're a police officer, you're just automatically bad. The actions of one or two bad ones reflect negatively on all of them, who, by the way, are out there risking their lives every single day, especially in a place like New York City, which isn't exactly the suburbs of Wisconsin, where the biggest concern they have are speeders and kids who get a six-pack. All right? I get it. GameSpot's Jordan Ramey wrote in his Spider-Man Miles Morales review that Miles Morales stumbles in pacing and differentiating itself from its predecessor, but is still a superhero journey worth taking, specifically because of its focus on Miles' identity and experience. Well, that's nothing. That for me is, I have zero interest in video games. That is the point. Certainly some people will, and that's cool. They can pick up the game. Now, I don't think that... I think it's inarguable that the last Spider-Man game was essentially one of the PlayStation 4's best games, right? I think that, you may say one is better than the other, but it's at least in the conversation. For this game, it's still a Spider-Man game. It's just a different Spider-Man under the suit. So the story is going to have to be what makes it different, maybe the combat, but it's still going to feel... It's like... the new Call of Duty game is still like 80% a Call of Duty game. They can change small things that make it feel different, but ultimately it's still just a sequel. They go on to say, quote, "It's a bit of a bummer to see Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales trip up at certain points, but thankfully it doesn't happen too often," he wrote. "The game wastes little time jumping you into Miles' story and rarely lets up on the brakes, packing the young wall crawler's first solo outing with more superpowers and radio chatter than the game needs. And yet, despite its frantic pace, Spider-Man Miles Morales is a compelling open-world action game that helps highlight why Miles is so special, his culture. It's Miles' unique differences and earnest attempts at figuring out how to protect his community and make him into such a wonderful hero." Well, sure. I think if that's what you're looking for in a video game, from your story, then cool. The media has been trying to politicize Miles Morales since, I don't know, ever. You could see this article. Spider-Man into Spider-Man's Miles Morales may not be LGBT, but the popular superhero movie is clearly a coming out story. Well, he's not LGBT, but it totally is, guys. It's just the most important thing. Now, again, is the game good or not? Well, that's going to... ultimately these side little quests and stuff like that are going to have little effect on whether or not the game is good. But I will show you what dabbling in identity politics will get you, all right? You see here Rene saying, "Yo, WTF, GameSpot." All right, well, let's see.
The way he leaps off of rooftops and flips backwards to face the camera before falling into a headfirst dive is just full of the exaggerated swagger of a black teen.
The exaggerated swagger of a black teen. The exaggerated swagger of a black teen? What? And by the way, the guy that wrote this is black. And he's still like... it's like written by a white guy worshiping race. And if you look at the review, Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales review, it currently has 3.3 thousand downvotes to 1.5 thousand upvotes. Let's take a look at the comments. IGN, "This game makes you feel like Spider-Man." GameSpot, "This game makes you feel like a black teen." Here's Vito, "That's some serious exaggerated swagger." Exaggerated swagger of a black teen. 2020 keeps throwing curveballs. I'm surprised he didn't say something like, "And his friends gank who are good at technology because he's Asian." Exaggerated swagger of a black teen. Game journalist. Half of the comments, exaggerated black swagger of a black teen. Other half, this review is so bad. Whenever I play Peter Parker's Spider-Man game, this is simply the perfect encapsulation of the swagger and joy of a white teen. 7 out of 10, much swagger of a black teen. I mean, it is ridiculous how obsessed with skin color these people are. None of that has anything to do with whether or not the game is good. It's hilarious, and the backlash was even better. And here's Alessandro Fileri, who is the GameSpot editor, who came to fight back, saying, "Hi, GameSpot editor here. If you actually bothered to read and listen to Jordan's review, who is black, of course you're obsessed with that, the majority of it examined Miles' experience of being a black character in New York City. This shameful tweet of yours just reeks of you assuming he was white and speaking out of turn." To which he gets reply, "I'm black, and I still think it's wrong for him to use words like that. For a game that inspires everyone to be your hero and related to him sounds bad no matter what. And thanks for calling me shameful, by the way." The problem was not at all that the speaker was white or not. It's just a really odd statement to make in general. I mean, that's the whole... Sorry, but I'm a black woman living in New York City, and I am appalled at the writing in this clip. No matter the context, exaggerated swagger of a black teen is reductive, if not nonsensical. So even if you're trying to get woke, if you're trying to appeal to these people who obsess over skin color, it backfires. This is why you don't inject politics into video games and why you just make good games. Now, is it entirely possible that there'd be BLM murals in New York City? Yeah, of course. Of course, right? But along with making these kind of statements, now you open yourself up to criticism. You know, are there also murals in New York City like Thin Blue Line, where I stand with the police? I guarantee it. But did they put those into the game? Probably not. I mean, people were upset that the fact that you even worked with them in a meaningful way in the first game. Again, the game will sell fine. This is not a huge deal, but it's still hilarious. It's hilarious that these people keep trying to appeal to the woke brigade, and it backfires every single time. I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.